كلية الفقه الحنفي تقدم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Inshallah, today we will talk about the kafara of dhihar. So we'll start off mentioning regarding the kafara, and I'll shed some light regarding the kafaras in Sharia, inshallah. We'll talk about the kafara, the compensation is in essence of the dhihar. We'll go through what Allah says in the Quranic ayah, and the first type of kafara, the first thing that a person needs to do in this expiation, what is it? Then the second option or second thing, if a person can't fulfill the first one, we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about the third thing that a person needs to do, and he must do that if he can't fulfill the previous two. And this compensation must be given if he wants his wife to become halal for him again. So this is something that we will talk about in detail a little bit, the dhihar chapter. So that will be the end of the dhihar chapter. Then we will start off, we'll move on to the Kitabul Li'an. So we will discuss regarding what Li'an is. We will tell you, inshallah, regarding the incident that happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding this Li'an. And remember, incidents like this happen because the Shariat needs to be made, right? There needs to be Sharia. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously makes these kind of things occur in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that we can have an example, we can have, there could be guidance for us as to these rulings, what would happen if it happens in our times. So obviously that we will talk about the incident of Hilal ibn Umayyah, inshallah, and then what happens if the man does accuse his wife of adultery, or he denies the lineage of the child that she gives birth to, what happens as a result of that, and the method we will inshallah go through. What is the method of li'an? How does the husband do this li'an, and how does the wife do this li'an? So we'll talk about that aspect inshallah as well. We'll also talk about who can do the li'an and who is not able to do the li'an, and what happens if you're unable to do the li'an. And inshallah we'll go through explaining regarding why is it that the wife will say the ghadab of Allah on her, and why is it that the husband will say the la'an of Allah upon him. So we'll shed some light on the difference between the two wordings, so beautifully put by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah we will discuss all of this today. So then he goes through in the book regarding the kafara of dhihar. The first one is freeing a slave, but because obviously this is something which is not really practiced upon nowadays, then we will skip all these rulings regarding freeing the slave. So we move straight on to the second thing that a person has to do, which is the more practical one nowadays, that a person will then fast for 2 consecutive months. When we're saying 2 consecutive months, it's obviously the lunar months. So if it's 29 and 29, then that's fine, 29 and 29. If it's 30, then whatever it is. So a person has to do the 2 consecutive months. That's if the person starts fasting on the first of that month, and that obviously would be the wise thing to do. Start fasting on the first of whatever the month is, Rabiul Awwal or Muharram, whatever it is. Start fasting on the first, so you can go according to the lunar date clearly. If a person starts fasting any other time, not the first, the second, third, fourth, or any other time of the month, then they would have to complete this month, and this month they will have to count as 30. So even if it's 29 days eventually, meaning on the 29th, the new moon already rose, doesn't matter. This person will have to count 30 and 30, meaning a person will have to do 60 days. Why? Because they started in the middle of the month. So they will have to do 60 days and not according to the actual month. Hopefully that makes sense. But obviously it'll be 30 for 1 month and 30 for the next one. So 60 days they'll have to end up doing. Then it has to be, very importantly here, it has to be consecutive, because that's what's mentioned in the Quran. If that consecutiveness breaks for whatever reason, they were so ill they couldn't fast anymore, right? That consecutiveness broke, then they'll have to start all over again, right? Or start, even if it was the last day, the very last day, they had one more day left, and that last day they just couldn't do it. They just didn't fast. They will have to start all over again. So this is how strict this one is. Likewise, the days of Eid cannot fall in there. If the day of Eid comes, then that will then break that 2 months of consecutiveness. Likewise, the Ramadan can't come in it as well. So the person can't, pull a fast one, you can say here, that I'll fast 1 month before Ramadan and I'm going to fast Ramadan anyway, so that's 2 consecutive months. No, you can't do that. That doesn't count. So it doesn't count in that way. And what's also important here to understand is if the person is fasting, doing this 2 months consecutive fasting for the dihar, right? So they are consecutive fasting, and after 20 days, 30 days, whatever days, a person slept with their wife, the one that he did dihar with, the one that was haram on him. He slept with her. Even if it was at night time he slept with her, that didn't break his consecutiveness of the fast. He'll have to start all over again. He will have to start all over again. He is not allowed to sleep with her even any time during that 2 months consecutiveness, because the Quranic ayat says he has to do siyamu shahrayn mutatabi'ain, fasting for 2 consecutive months, min qabli an yatamassa. So the 2 consecutive months have to be min qabli yatamassa, meaning when you offer the 2 consecutive months to Shariat after you've fasted the 2 consecutive months, that quality of the 2 consecutive months have to be min qabli yatamassa. That has to be without having touched her, without having, in essence, done anything that you would do with the wife. So this is important to understand. If he doesn't do that, he's going to have to start all over again, and he has to do a new 2 consecutive months where he's offering that to Shariat as a kafara, as a compensation, without min qabli yatamassa. So he has to make sure that is understood because of the Quranic ayah. And this also gives to you a little concept here of how us Hanafis are in terms of our fiqh. So we are very, very particular regarding the wording of the Quran. So because Allah Ta'ala is obviously Allah Ta'ala, He is the one who spoke here. It's His kalam. He didn't miss it out, did he? He knew exactly what he was saying, right? He knew exactly that this is what this ayah also means, right? It can also mean that this 2 months have to be free of any sort of intercourse or anything. So when Allah said it like that, that means He also meant it like that as well, because it's not like Allah didn't know, right? Allah knew everything, that this is the way that this verse can also be understood. So that means that's the way we are. We're very, very particular with the wordings of the Quran because it's Allah speaking here. And obviously Allah knows every angle. So if this verse can be taken from that angle as well and understood like that, then that means we're going to take that word, take that as well from the wording. Hopefully this will help you to understand many other rulings, especially in usul, when you come across these verses of the Quran and you're very fixated with this Quranic ayah. Despite there being a hadith, we're still giving preference to this Quranic ayah and the wording. That's because Kitabullah comes first, then comes Sunnah in terms of strength of evidence. So Kitabullah comes first, and the way Allah spoke is divine. Obviously Allah speaking is beyond what a hadith would have been saying. So the hadith can obviously be, is the wordings as we know of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So though there's an aspect there which I don't want to open a can of worms for, but the point is that the hadith is in rank, when we're looking at evidence, is ranked lower in comparison to the Kitabullah. So when we talk about Kitabullah, when the wording is such, then that's it. That's the wording, we stick to that. So hopefully this concept is understood as well when we come to taking fiqh rulings from the Quran. Now, if a person breaks a fast, right, during their the 2 months consecutiveness, they break the fast, or they don't fast a day, right, for whatever reason, whether it's with an excuse, without an excuse, doesn't matter, they will have to start all over again. So you can see the strictness here when we're talking about the kafara. Then we move on to the next thing that a person can offer in kafara if a person's unable to fast for 2 consecutive months. So remember, when we're talking about fasting for 2 consecutive months, they have to be able to do it, right? If a person's truly unable to fast for 2 consecutive months, then they'll move on to the next one, right? You're not going to make a person go through a 2 months consecutive fast and then on day 50 they realize that this is really affecting my health and I'm unable to do this because of them already being unhealthy, or them already being anemic, or them already being somebody who's naturally weak, or it's in a country where it's really hot and long days and things like that. That's why it's always recommended to pick a time of of that time of the year where there's shorter days or something, right? So you got easier fasts to get the 2 months consecutive done in. Nevertheless, if a person is unable to, then we move them on to the next one, which is feeding 60 poor people. So when we're talking about 60 poor people, you're feeding them the amount that you would give them in sadaqatul fitr. So it's half a sa' of wheat, a full sa' of barley or dates or anything of that is mentioned in that equivalence. So this is the amount or the value of that, obviously, the amount that a person would give in sadaqatul fitr. So it's very easy. You just check the amount that is you normally give, or your local masjid or whatever it is that's giving in sadaqatul fitr. So you're going to give that much amount to each poor person. So you've got 60 poor people and you give them that much amount. Now, if a person wishes not to give them the amount, but he wants to feed them actually, saying that, okay, I'm going to actually feed these people, I'm going to cook food, I'm going to feed them, then he has to give them 2 meals. Okay, he has to give them 2 meals, obviously the afternoon and the evening meal, or you could say like the early morning and the evening meal. So these 2 meals he has to give to them. So he has to feed them twice, and it has to be adults that he feeds. He can't be feeding children. So he's feeding adults that are obviously able to eat because they're able to take their portion properly. And he has to feed them however much they eat. So they could eat more than the amount of that half a sa', the amount of sadaqatul fitr. They could eat more than that. But he has to feed them. He has to feed them till they're satisfied in that lunch or in that dinner. So he has to feed them. Even if it goes beyond. Likewise, if it's less. So let's say he got all of these half a sa's, all of these full sa' of whatever together, and then he cooked something with it and he fed them and they didn't eat all of it. That's fine. Because the point was to feed them. Because the Quranic ayat says, "It'amu sittina miskina," feeding the 60 poor people. So either he feeds them in this way, but then he has to feed them however much they're going to eat, whether it's more or less, or he gives them that amount of the sadaqatul fitr. He gives them that and they can do whatever they want. So he can give it to them, and in that way it can be done as well. He can also feed one poor person for 60 days. So he finds one person only and he feeds them for 60 days, then he can do that too. But he can't give that one person in one day for 60 days. So here you go, I'm not going to come to you for 60 days. Here you go, for the next 60 days, this is your food, or this is your whatever it is. He can't do that. That will count as only for that day. Because remember, the minimum is nisf sa', half a sa'. There's no limit to the maximum. We'll just consider you have been very generous. You give them a lot. You gave them 60 days worth on one day. So the point is that you can't do it in one day. You have to give it over 60 days. Likewise, you can make the maths here. Obviously, if you feed half the amount of people for the double the amount of days, 2 days, 30 people, then obviously that works as well. The idea is to get the quota done. 60 poor people have to be fed, the morning and afternoon, or you give them. So that is what needs to happen. And in this particular one, whilst he is feeding, so let's say he fed one person, who was feeding one person for 60 days, right? So on day 10, he slept with his wife that he did dhihar with. He doesn't have to start again. So in this one, he doesn't have to start again. Again, this is us looking at the way that Allah Ta'ala spoke, because when he says it'amu sittina miskina, he didn't say min qabli yatamassa, before touching her. He didn't say that there. So obviously Allah knows what he's doing. So there Allah didn't say it. So there's a reason why Allah didn't say it there. So we understand that he doesn't have to start again, because the offering of this 60 poor people doesn't have to be done min qabli yatabassa. So we understand that that is the case here. Right, so that is that rulings, all of those rulings in regards to that done. Now, the chapter of li'an. So li'an, firstly understand, that is where a man, he accuses his wife, in essence, of adultery. So if the man accuses his wife of doing, of being unfaithful, then if both the husband and wife are people who would be able to give witness in court, meaning they are of that, that kind of caliber, meaning they're people that can give witnessing. If, for example, one's a slave, then they're not of that caliber, right? Or if one person is somebody who has previously been convicted of something, so they're already a criminal in essence, right? In certain degrees, in certain aspects, or they're known to be a liar or something in court, they've been barred from, from giving testimony or something like that. Something has happened, right? So they've accused the chaste woman. Because of that, now they were given lashes. So in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ, those people who accuse a chaste woman, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَأْتُوا بِأَرْبَعَةِ شُهَدَاء, then they're unable to bring 4 witnesses. Then what do? You فَجْلِدُوهُمْ ثَمَانِينَ جَلْدًا, give them 80 lashes, right? You give them 80 lashes. وَلَا تَقْبَلُوا لَهُمْ شَهَادَةً أَبَدًا, and don't ever accept their testimony. So now this person has become somebody whose testimony cannot be accepted. So if this person did li'an, then, meaning accused his wife of zina, then this li'an will not happen. This li'an will only happen if the husband accuses the wife of committing adultery, and both of them are people who are able to testify in court. Yeah, so that is, and then the wife, she brings the case to court saying, my husband's accused me of zina, I want this clarified, or I want my name cleared, right? So she brings the case to court. Then there will be a li'an. What will be happening, I will explain that later. But the point here simply is that there will be a li'an taking place. So that's one scenario where the husband accuses the wife of adultery. And that's a direct way he's accused her. But an indirect way as well is if she gives birth and he says, this is not my child. So if he negates the lineage of the child that she gave birth to, then obviously he's saying, this is not my child. You went and, did adultery with you and slept with somebody else, and that's where you got pregnant from. This is not my child. So that's what in essence he's saying, though he hasn't said it clearly. So this again will constitute li'an if he negates the child's lineage that she gave birth to. So these are the ways, in essence, where he directly accuses her of zina or indirectly accuses her of zina, of adultery. And that because of that, the wife wants the case to come to court. She brings the case to court. So therefore, this li'an process will take place. Now, before we go on to the actual li'an process, there's a story behind it that it's good to know the incident so that we are able to comprehend the rulings that come up ahead. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hilal ibn Umayyah, there's also an incident of another Sahabi, Uwaymir al-Ajlani, that this incident happened for. So Hilal ibn Umayyah is the famous one, where he came home and he saw his wife with somebody else. So he was enraged. He came to Prophet ﷺ and he says that, he tells Prophet ﷺ that his wife with somebody else. And now, at that time, there was no ruling. The only ruling was that you accuse the chaste woman, you're going to have to bring 4 proofs. So obviously Prophet ﷺ asked him for 4 proofs. So he got really up, because he remembered that he was already enraged. So he got really annoyed and says that when a man sees somebody with his wife, he's going to go looking for 4 proofs. Like, what are you asking me for? It's not practical. It's not something that anyone would have done, kind of thing, right? So Prophet said, sorry, that's the ruling of the Quran. So either you bring 4 proofs, or we're going to have to lash you. We're going to have to give you 80 lashes. Hudda fi dhahrik. So Prophet said, your back is going to get lashes. So he was not having it. He was like, no, I know I'm truthful. I know I saw my wife in this state. I know 100% I'm truthful. Allah will bring down something that will absolve my back from the lashes. So then Prophet ﷺ eventually he went into this state of wahi, as we know, and then when he came out of it, then these verses were revealed regarding the li'an. So the verses of li'an came down, which in essence explained the whole incident. It goes through explaining what needs to happen, in essence. So what happens now? That's what the incident, Prophet ﷺ then brought the husband was brought, Hilal ibn Umayyah, and his wife was brought, and the Prophet ﷺ told him to take 4 oaths. So this is the process, this is what happens. He takes 4 oaths, right, stating that he is truthful in what he is accusing her of. إنه لمن الصادقين. So he is from the truthful ones. He is accusing her of zina, and he is truthful in that. So he will say, Wallahi, by Allah I testify. So he will say Wallahi, and he will also testify. He will use both. So it's very strong here, very strong wording. He's using oath and testimony. So Wallahi, by Allah I testify that I am truthful in that which I am accusing her of regarding zina. So he will do this 4 times, and every time the Qadi will tell him that, are you sure you know what you're doing? And he will warn him, of the severity of what he's saying, and then he will go on to take 4 oaths. After the 4th one, he will now take the 5th one. The 5th one is أن لعنة الله عليه, that he will say that the curse of Allah be upon himself. He will say that if he is lying, if he is not truthful in what he is accusing her of, so he will invoke the curse of Allah upon him. That's the reason it's called a li'an, a mutual cursing, in essence. So he will do this. He will say 4 oaths, and the 5th one will be this invoking of the curse of Allah upon himself if he is lying. So after he does this, then the Qadi will move on to her now. So that's what happened. Hilal ibn Umayyah did the 5, then Prophet ﷺ moved on to her. When he moved on to her, he warned her, obviously, and that it's easier to take the punishment of this world, and obviously the hereafter is there's doom. Obviously, if you lie in this way, is dangerous and things like that. So she actually hesitated. But then she said, no, I can't disgrace my people, for the remainder of the days that they live for. My people will be disgraced, because my people will always be known as the people whose a woman amongst them, she did zina, like the Imra'at al-Ghamidiyya. So Ghamid is the place, right? So we know the Imra'at al-Ghamidiyya, we know in this manner, though she was obviously honored for what she did. But obviously she was saying that, no, I can't disgrace my people will be known for the remainder of the days to be a people amongst whom the woman committed adultery. So she said no, and she went ahead and she took the 4 oaths that he is lying. So she will say, the wording will come later on. So she said that he's lying, and then the 5th one is she will invoke the wrath of Allah upon herself. So she will say, أن غضب الله عليها, that the ghadab of Allah, the anger, the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon herself. She'll invoke that upon herself if she is telling a lie. So this what happened. This actually happened, and then after that, the Qadi can't do anything now. The judge can't do anything in terms of punishment on either of them if this happens. Obviously, if either of them prevent from, then rulings will come. But in this particular incident that we're talking about in Hilal ibn Umayyah, what happened, then obviously Prophet ﷺ, though he knew that she's lying, he can't do anything about it, right? So he even said in one hadith, he mentions, if there was anybody that I was going to punish without any proof, it would have been her, but obviously you can't, and nobody can punish without any proof. So the Prophet ﷺ even told the Sahaba radiallahu anhum afterwards, to some of them, to keep an eye when she gives birth, because she became pregnant. When she gives birth, which, if she gives birth to a child that's curly hair, these kind of features, then that means the hilal was lying, because the child resembles hilal. But if she gives birth to a child that is resembling these features, then that means because the child resembles the person that she committed adultery with, that means she's lying. So eventually, when she gave birth, the Sahaba saw that the child was resembling the adulteress, the person who did the adultery. So the adulterer, sorry. So that's when Prophet ﷺ said these kind of words. But obviously, we can't do anything about it. She's taken her oaths. So this is what happened in the incident, and from that, all of these rules have been derived. So hopefully, this is understood here. So we said that if the man accuses the wife of zina, or if the man negates the child that the woman gives birth to, then the woman also goes to court and demands that this case be taken to court. Obviously, if the wife never demands it and she just takes it, he's saying, you adulteress, you unfaithful woman, and the rest of it, he's just saying that, and she never takes it to court, then nothing happens. But this is very dangerous. Sometimes people do this. They accuse each other, husband and wife accuse each other of adultery and things like this. You can see the severity of this. It's very severe. You cannot accuse somebody of adultery, right? Is a dangerous grounds to be on. So this is something that a person should definitely refrain from. Now, what happens if one of them refrains, saying that, no, I'm not going to take the oaths? Then if the person, whichever person it is that is not taking the oaths, is not fulfilling their part, they will be imprisoned until, they basically will be put in prison until they say, I'm lying, I was lying. So if they were lying, they're going to get the punishment for whatever it is. If it was the husband lying, then he's going to get the 80 lashes. If it's the wife lying, if she's the one who's committing adultery, then she's going to get a punishment for having committed adultery. So that's what's going to happen. If they're going to be imprisoned until they either belie themselves, saying, no, I was lying, or either say they go ahead and take the oaths. So they have to go ahead and do the li'an. They have no choice now once it gets to the qadi. And same thing happens to the wife. If she prevents and says, I'm not taking the oaths, then she's going to get imprisoned until she does. And she's going to have to either say that he's truthful, and then she'll get the obviously suitable punishment, or she's going to have to do the li'an. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So now continuing, once we've understood the main concepts of li'an through the hadith and everything, so now I've already mentioned regarding this that if the husband is not somebody who can give testimony in court, so for example he's a slave, or he's a non-Muslim, or he is somebody who has already been given a had penalty because of him accusing a chaste woman. So we talked about that, if you remember. Then therefore the li'an cannot take place. But what that then means is that if the wife takes the case to court, she will then the husband will in essence be lashed 80 times because he accused his wife without any proof. So he accused his wife of committing adultery, and he has no proof. He can't do li'an, so therefore he will get the 80 lashes, the had of accusing, the had penalty of accusing a chaste woman, in essence his wife, of adultery. So he has to make sure when he is accusing her, it's like a preventative, right? It prevents him from accusing her if he doesn't fit the right criteria of doing the li'an. And this is regardless of if the wife was a slave or anybody else. Remember that first we're looking at the husband. He has to fit the bill first. Now, if the husband is a person who fits the bill, he is somebody who can give testimony in court, then we look at the wife now. If the wife is a slave, or if the wife is a disbeliever, or if the wife is somebody who's been accused, who's been given a had penalty because of an accusation she did previously, or any other reason as to why the wife, if she's insane, or she's known to be somebody who sleeps around with other women, whatever reason, other men. So she's been, convicted of, adultery or something before as well already. So any of these reasons which drop her from the rank of somebody who can give testimony in court, she's not that kind of a woman. So then what will happen? There will be no the had penalty, the 80 lashes that were meant to be on the husband, that won't be on the husband anymore. Okay, so that will drop from him, and obviously because they don't meet the criteria of li'an, there will be no li'an. So the case will just be thrown out of court in essence. So there will be nothing that will be due really. Obviously the qadi may on the side say that, stop accusing your wife of these things now. You don't have proof. If you don't want to stay with her, then don't stay with her, but don't say these kind of things. That's the qadi's job, whether he does that or not. But the point is, here is fiqhan, we understand that they have to be meeting the criteria of both being ahlus shahada, we say, they are able to be witnesses in court. Then it will go to li'an, otherwise it will not go to li'an. Another thing which is important to remember here is that if the husband accuses the wife of adultery, then the li'an takes place. And if the wife, be ready for this one, right? If the wife accuses the husband of adultery, then no li'an can ever take place. Okay, so no li'an can take place. So the wife doesn't can't back herself up basically through li'an. So if the wife accuses the husband of adultery, and the husband, both of them are people that are chaste and whatever, right? Or at least he is. So then he can take the case to court and get her lashed 80 times, right? Because if she doesn't have any proof, because she will be told, she will be demanded to bring 4 proofs. If she has no proof, or she doesn't have the 4 proofs, she has less than that, she will then be lashed. So the question now arises, why is that unfair like that, right? The reason is because obviously according to fiqh, you should understand that the rulings of Sharia are established through nas, right? Rulings like this, and the first initial ruling, even for the incident of Hilal ibn Umayyah, was that you're going to get lashed if you don't bring proof. The man was also going to get lashed if he didn't bring proof. Now obviously the Quranic ayat came down, and that li'an process, replacing the 80 lashes had of qadhaf, is contrary to analogy. It doesn't make sense why the li'an would replace that. So we know the rule in Sharia is anything which is proven, which is contrary to qiyas, we call it khilaful qiyas, is contrary to analogy. We can't then further that. We can't then do analogy on that. So something which is proven khilaful qiyas, you can't do qiyas on that. Right? So now there was never an incident of li'an taking place because the wife accused the husband from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So therefore we have no way to go by that, right? So if the wife accuses the husband, there's no proof that li'an should take place. But there is proof when the husband accuses the wife. In fact, from the Quran and from the incident at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where the husband accused the wife, there was a li'an that took place and it replaced the had. But on the contrary, there's no proof for it. So we need nas to prove that, because there's no analogy that we can do. So that's the reason why we understand whatever is proven khilaful qiyas is restricted to the place it's mahdood ala mawrid al-shar', according to what Shariat has stipulated it as. And obviously in this particular incident it was a male, the man, the husband, who accused the wife, so that's why it's restricted to that. So hopefully people understand the fiqhi working behind that. So here we have if the wife accused, she will have to bring 4 proofs. If she doesn't, she will be lashed. So obviously the idea here is anyone that attempts to accuse somebody of adultery, they better be sure that they have the 4 witnesses. Otherwise, don't accuse somebody. It's meant to be a deterrent to stop people from accusing people in this manner. So hopefully this is understood. The book then goes through the method of the li'an. So I'm just going to quickly mention it because we kind of mentioned it from the hadith, but I did say we're going to go through when it comes in the book a bit more detail. So we start off with the husband, and the husband will say 4 times, like we said, the husband will say 4 times, I testify with Allah, meaning with the name of Allah, that I am from the truthful ones in that which I have accused her of regarding zina, or in zina. So then he will say the 5th time, obviously in between, like I said, the Qadi will try to tell him that, look, are you sure this is going to be dangerous? You're cursing yourself, right? So he'll try to warn him a little bit to try to deter him from lying if he is. So the 5th time he'll say that the curse of Allah upon him if he is lying in that which he is accusing her of in zina. And he will indicate to her, he'll gesture to her every time accusing her of, just in case, he's trying to pull a fast one, like a white lie kind of thing, right? Accusing the other woman, and he says her, right? That's why some people have even mentioned, Imam Hanifa mentioned that he has to say accusing you of, like addressing her rather than saying her, so using the 2nd person rather than using the 3rd person. Nevertheless, if he indicates to her, then the 2nd person doesn't have to be used. It's fine as long as he's indicating to her. Then the turn of the wife will come. The wife will then take 4 testimonies with name of Allah. So I testify in the name of Allah that he is from the lying people. He is lying in that which he is accusing me of regarding zina. And the 5th time she'll say that the wrath of Allah Ta'ala be upon herself. She'll obviously say herself, if he is truthful in what he is accusing me of in zina. So this is what he'll do. Then you see in many books, obviously there's a difference here. I purposefully didn't mention it before because now it mentions that there's the difference between the husband cursing himself and doing la'an and the wife stating the wrath of Allah upon her. The reason why is this the case is because the women, generally speaking, they curse a lot anyway, right? So meaning that they curse themselves. If you think about it properly, then you will see that a woman does sometimes, in the emotion, the high tension, if she goes through difficulty, that, may I never live to see this day. I wish I wasn't alive. I wish I died before this, or something like that. So she'll curse herself in these kind of ways, and she'll curse sometimes her children, and she'll curse things that without realizing that she's cursing. So cursing, in essence, because she's doing it quite often, and obviously this comes from the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where it mentions to the women, tukthinna al-la'n, that women, they curse a lot, right? That was one of the reasons why Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned what lands a woman in Jahannam. Nevertheless, the point is that the women, they generally will curse a lot. So if she's cursing a lot already, and then you're telling her, okay, now curse yourself for the 5th one, it won't be a big deal. It won't be a major thing for her. So because she's not really scared of the curse, so it's fine. She'll just take it very easily. But if she is told to, say the anger of Allah on her, because she doesn't do that, and obviously women generally are scared of anger. If somebody shows anger towards her, she becomes a bit more frightened. She becomes a bit closed. So the anger is suited to her, that she is now causing the wrath and the anger of Allah on her, so she'll be a bit more careful of doing that. And on the counter side, the man is being told to say curse, because the man is not really scared of anger. You show anger towards a man, he's not really going to get scared, right? So if he was to say the ghadab of Allah on him, he won't get scared. It won't be really a big thing for him. And whereas if you curse a man, he will take it, he will take insult to that. If you curse him, he'll tell you, why did you curse me? No, I can't take it, you curse me. And he will get really emotional about it. And he will even say, no, take your words back. Say you take it back. Why did you curse me? He can't deal with that curse. So a man, generally men, when they're cursed, they take real, they feel it a lot. So that's the idea, that the man is being told to curse himself, so he considers it to be something quite major. So you see the difference here. in the way that they both approach this. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now, just to summarize what we've done today. So we went through the kafara of dhihar. We went through explaining the types of kafara and shedding some light on that. Alhamdulillah, hopefully people have understood. In this particular type of kafara, the kafara of dhihar, we have the two forms of strictness. One is strict in terms of what you need to do. So you need to, obviously freeing a slave is in both of them, so it's fine. But in terms of the fasting 2 consecutive months, in comparison to fasting over there just 3 days, and over here feeding 60 poor people in comparison to over there feeding 10 or clothing 10 people. And the second form of strictness was the order, that in this dhihar you must follow order. If you can't do A, then only can you move on to B, and if you can't do B, then only you can move on to C. Whereas over there, A, B and C, there was a choice, and only if you can't do them, then you are allowed to do the fasting. That was the last one, the fourth one, there was a choice for. So hopefully these differences were understood in regards to the kafaras. Then we went through small rulings in regards to the fasting 2 consecutive months. First, that you can't sleep with the wife in between. If he does, then he has to start all over again. And in the feeding, that wasn't the case. If you remember, that was not the case over there. In the feeding, we talked about how feeding 60 poor people, or you ending up feeding 60 poor people, in essence, over 60 days you feed one person. It has to be 2 meals if you're actually feeding them. And if you're giving them, then you can give them each the amount, the equivalent to Sadaqatul Fitr. So we talked about that. Then we moved on to the Kitab of Li'an, and we talked about the incident of Hilal ibn Umayyah. A similar incident happened with Uwaymir al-Ajlani as well, and it's mentioned that it took place regarding him. The incident regarding him is from a weaker source, but Hilal ibn Umayyah is from a stronger source. So nevertheless, the incident happened in a time did happen, and that's the reason why this whole verse and the ruling came down regarding what a person should do when the li'an takes place. So we talked about how in the li'an it's important that the wife, she takes the case to court, and it's also important that both of them must meet the criteria of li'an, meaning that there have to be people who can give testimony in court. If one of them is falling short, then there will be obviously a repercussion of that. So if the husband is not a person that can give testimony in court, then as a result he will get the 80 lashes, the haddul qadhaf. And if the wife isn't, then the li'an just cannot take place. You can't, in essence, repel what the husband is, in essence, said to her. She can't get that clarified, which she wanted to do. Then we went through the method of li'an. We talked about that for testimonies with the name of Allah. The 5th one is the la'an the husband does, and we talked about why the husband says the la'an, very suited to men. And the wife will also take the 4 testimonies with the name of Allah. And the 5th one will be the ghadab of Allah, the wrath of Allah upon herself. And we talked about why that is very much suited to her, and how beautifully Allah Ta'ala, how Sharia is so beautiful, considerate of every person, in accordance to what suits them. And that's the way Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does things. So may Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to understand all of this and appreciate our Sharia. Ameen.